Hey there, my name is Konstantin. I'm a full stack developer, and in this video I'm going to continue porting my small vanilla JS application to Solid.js framework. Let's start today from the problem we had last time with conditional rendering of this part. I'm going to reproduce the situation real quick. Let me use show component of Solid.js, and the condition here for displaying the data would be something like this. Sorry, my auto-completion. And fallback for that code would be the code from the previous application, from the old one. It's just a loading indicator. It's pretty simple, but yeah, at least something. Okay, I'm going to insert this code, which actually depends on the calculation of the dates signal. So and let me run the application and show you what's the problem. Okay, you may see that the moon face is not rendered here, and it means, just a second, I'm gonna clean my service worker stuff, because I had something that I tested myself and which needs to be cleaned. We'll reload it real quick. Okay, now we don't have any warnings in the developer console. So coming back to the application, you may not see the chart here because of this conditional rendering. And as you may remember, we rendered the moon face here with the free library. So if you take a look at the code here, the root element and the moon, so yeah, and let me just change it to false, so you see that in fact the moon root element is not rendered until the condition is performed, until the condition completes. So you may see loader here. For some reason it's at the bottom, not a big problem now, but yeah. And you may see that there is no moon element here, so there is no this SVG here until this condition becomes true. And d3 library actually needs a root element to be rendered. I will show you what happens when d3 doesn't find the root element on the page, or whether it finds it or not. Let's see. I'm going to log the value of the root element, which should be found by the reference. Let me refresh the page, open the element object, and you may see that the first element which is found is undefined, which means it's not found. There is no root element on the page, and we can see it by the element explorer here. We can only see loading indicator. So d3, because it cannot find the root element, it cannot render the entire chart because of that. So, and it fails silently, which is okay, but we need to handle that ourselves. That's why the root element for the chart should always be displayed. So this root element should not be inside of this condition. And going even further, this element is rendered conditionally also. So by default, if no dates defined, it will just render empty div, which is okay for us, which is very close to what we had before. You see the empty div of the old application and the root element for the SVG chart. And the loading indicator is displayed by default. By the way, the rendering function, what it does, it just it doesn't use any conditions. It just performs removing of the loading indicator right after calculating the dates, which means that it assumes, this old code assumes that moon dates are always generated, are always calculated. So it's kind of a workaround, but I'm going to implement something like this as well, and moving this representation of the dates inside out of the condition, because it just doesn't make sense. First, because these elements are empty by default until dates signal is filled with some values, and second is because of the nature of this visualization logic, we need the root element of the moon to be present always. I mean, because the div3 needs it on the page. So what I'm going to do now is just simulate the same behavior which we had before for the old application. I'm going to create a signal for loading, just Boolean value, which indicates whether the loading indicator should be displayed or not. And let me just define a new signal here of Boolean value, and by default it should be true, and it can always be true until this function is performed. So I need to set loading here to false. I think we are good now, and here I'm going to use a condition checking the loading signal value and displaying the loading indicator based on that value. Let me reload the application and see what happens. It's good. The moon is displayed right away. It's very quick. We don't even see how it's happening, but we are okay. We are very close to the original code which we had before, but now we don't manipulate DOM tree directly through document, query selector, insert, append, etc. We do all this stuff through Solid.js, and they reactively update the values of the of these dates and also the moon chart based on current date. So I think it's a good, as I mentioned, it's a good copy of what we had before. By default, the moon is empty, the next dates div empty, the loading indicator is displayed by default. So we are good. Next thing I want to do today is I forgot to copy the Readme file, which is necessary for open sourcing this application later on. So I'm going to copy the old Readme file content and insert it somewhere here. Let me use this approach here. I'm gonna keep some information from the Solid.js template because it kind of might be relevant for people who wanna contribute, etc. Okay, let me leave it as is for now. I will definitely rephrase some stuff here, maybe remove or add some relevant information, but for now we should be good. So, and one big step forward is adding progressive web application features here. And for that, I'm gonna analyze what I have in the old application, what configuration I have for that progressive web app. You see the generate SV logic here as a plugin for Webpack, which actually generates a service worker file. Service worker is a kind of in-browser proxy for our content. So if currently application is not available through the internet, it displays you a cached version. So I'm gonna show you how it works based on our previous application, actually the main one now, because yeah, it's still there, it's still hosted on ashtangamut.org. So you may see that the application tab and the service worker subsection has information about our service worker. Service worker is a JavaScript file which is performed and which actually regulates what information should be cached, what requests to backend should be responded immediately and then cached, or should be requested from the network, and if the network fails, the cached version should be returned. Depends on what strategy you choose. I use just default strategy. I think it just returns you cached version if it cannot find network ones, if it cannot access the network one. Okay, let me come back to the service worker section here. You may see I actually checked the box update on reload, because service worker is a file which is kind of also sits in the browser always, and if you don't instruct it to get updated, it just doesn't update. And for development, it's very useful to have this checkbox here. But now I'm going to just show you how this particular progressive web app works. I will just uncheck this box for now, reload the application. And now I will use offline checkbox here to check if this application is actually progressive or not. You see that network is disabled. I just reload the application, and you may see some requests to the backend which failed. This is probably to the progressive web app manifest. It's not that important to fix this. I'm not going to focus on that much now. As you may see, just that the application is served through the browser cache, and the cache storage actually has an entry called workbox precache, and this workbox precache, I think it has this information stored here for every request. It has a kind of copy of this resource, copy of the image. Just give me a second. I'm gonna show you. Yeah, you may see that favicon is copied here, is cached here. Some HTML is the main template is cached here. Some JavaScript, CSS files also cached here, which is what we want actually. When the internet is poor, or then the internet is not available, you should still see the current date, the current moon state, and the new moon and full moon dates. This is how it was designed, and we are going to reproduce this behavior for our new Solid.js application. Let me come back to the code. Yeah, I'm gonna disable the network throttling. I'm gonna enable internet again for this particular application. So this is our new application, which looks identical. The only stuff is that if I open the service worker tab and reload the app, we can see some old stuff here. It's for testing. You see def SW here. This is just my outdated stuff. So when I test it, I'm not going to clean this up. It's marked deleted already. We'll just continue working, but don't focus on that much. And if I open manifest, there is nothing here, and service worker, there is nothing here. Oh, by the way, I need to show you the manifest file, because it's also relevant. We are going to copy the manifest approach as well, because they need it. The web app actually needs a few things, and the most important two of them is having an app manifest with all the details, how the app should look on being application and not just website. And also it should have the service worker file, which actually caches content for offline use or for cases when the internet is poor. So two basic things which we are going to copy from the previous application. The problem is that the previous application used Webpack, as you may see here, Webpack prod config, and now we are using Vite. Actually, it was my mistake. I called it Vite, but I then checked it's Vite actually. So please correct me in comments if I again call it Vite, because it's not correct. It stands from some French word, so it should be Vite. I'm gonna use Vite word from now on. So let me continue. So here, the old application, it's a Webpack powered application, Webpack bundled application, and the new one is Vite based application. So we cannot just copy this stuff as is and hope that it works, but still we can copy some stuff because we have something already useful. Okay, and let me start from a plugin for Vite. It's called Vite PWA, and this it has a website. Actually, you can Google it easily. I pre-opened this tab just for simplicity and to make it quicker. So this plugin for Vite has example section. Let's go to the example section and find an example which can be useful for us. I'm gonna open Solid.js example here, and this page has a link at the top which leads to a GitHub project, to a particular folder which is responsible for Solid.js based application, and I'm going to copy some stuff from that application. To not reinvent the wheel, I'm going to copy some code from here and try to reproduce the same behavior which we had before. So I'm gonna start from the Vite config, because this is the main configuration for Vite bundler. I'm going to copy some code from here. I will adjust it later on. For now, it should be okay just to copy and paste. I'm gonna open my Vite configuration in the new setup. You see that my Vite config is almost empty. It has just one plugin enabled for Solid.js. So I'm going to just insert the code from the example here. And you see that TypeScript complains about some stuff here. I don't have some plugins. Let me just copy some dependencies from the example. So what we are going to need probably it's white plugin PWA. This version is for this particular setup. We will need to install the latest version from npm. Let me just install some libraries which we would need. I will use npm install and development, because this stuff, the bundling happens during the build phase. So first I install the main plugin for progressive web app in white environment. While it's installing, I'm going to copy some other modules from here. Workbox actually good project. It's really huge. We don't need everything it provides, but we still need some sub plugins and some sub modules to enable pre-caching of the content, to enable this progressive service worker generation, etc. So I'm going to copy, not actually copy as is, but try to install the necessary packages here. I'm going to install them together at once. Let me just copy the names. I don't remember them by heart, but yeah, it's not a big issue, right? You can always Google, you can always find if you know what to look for, right? I'm going to install Workbox code here as well. Let us take a look at the package.json which actually changed. Workbox core, pre-caching, window, etc. This is what we need, which is good. We also need white plugin progressive web app. Okay, what else we can need from this? I think this should be more or less okay. We will be using the preview feature, the preview command to start this progressive application. You actually need to normally service worker requires you to have SSL connection, so it should be HTTPS, and for localhost by default obviously it's not HTTPS. There are some approaches to make it HTTPS, but I don't think they need them now. I think we should be okay with just HTTP version, but with the preview mode of Vite, we should be okay. Okay, what else? We need also some type definitions to be loaded. I think for that I'm going to open src folder and find env-dts, and I will just copy these 3 lines, because this line should be already there. If we open our new application, we see white client is already referenced here. I will copy just 3 lines of which belong to the new plugins, and also web worker, which we will need potentially for some type definitions of the inside our service worker, inside our new service worker. Let me maybe try to add these definitions, type definitions here. It doesn't see them yet, so I'm going to just, for simplicity, I'm going to copy these type definitions from the example code the declaration of type definition to be precise. And also I need to enable PWA plugin here through vit-config. And it's important this sequence, the order of plugins sometimes is important, so I'm going to follow the same order which the example project provides. So now we can just work on the manifest, work on the resources here, work on the stuff, and copy some stuff from the old application. Let me first copy some manifest information from the old application, because it's more or less the same. Some things should be changed, some should be adjusted, but more or less it should be fine to use the same settings, because web app manifest has its strong standard, and you should not reinvent the wheel here. So you see this one is not known here, unknown word. That's because the plugin we are using here, PWA, has its own implementation of that. And I'm just going to add this subsetting, use credentials here as true, and remove this occurrence from here. Okay, what else? We don't need to have exact absolute paths here or something like this. It should be relative from the public folder. So if my images is located inside public EMG, I'm going to use just EMG / etc. So that should be perfectly fine to define some icons here. Remember, every application needs its icons to be properly installed to desktop as an icon. So yeah, and that's why it's important to have it here. Some things here commented out by me. I didn't work a lot on these icons. I wanted just basic stuff to make the service worker work, to make the manifest work. So I'm going to just add basic stuff here. I think this large icon here has the resolution of 2024 per 2024. So yeah, I'm going to remove the icons from the example project, because they have really different images and really different with really different resolutions. So I'm going to mention the proper resolution here according to my images. Yeah, I think this should be okay. I will just save and reformat the code automatically. Okay, what else? We need to include some favicons also to the service worker cache, to cache them basically. So I'm going to copy these file names, copy relative paths from here and insert them here inside include assets. I will remove public here because public is not necessary, because we already the root path for this is public by default, public vit folder. So it should be good just with img / and yes, I think it's pretty straightforward here. Yeah, I need an array here and the quote, a comma, sorry. So yeah, now this way we cache some images, icons, which we are going to use for our progressive web application. We don't have to cache icons here because they are automatically cached by this configuration. So what else we need here? I think this condition can be improved by changing it to the not env. So I'm going to enable development features only for development, for the development environment, which is reasonable, right? And here the development mode explicitly set to development. I mean, we don't need it. By default, it actually looks into the process.env and sees, when it sees development, it enables development mode. So I will just use default behavior here. I don't need it to be set explicitly here. So what else I can change here? I'm not sure what this one means, but okay, let it be. Not very interested in that now. Maybe I can just improve the icons section here, but I will get to it later. Let me set some basic necessary defaults. For instance, I need to set src dir to src as well, because our custom service worker file, service worker module, will be located inside src dir. And we also need to set file name for our new custom service worker. I'm gonna call it svts, and I'm going to put it inside the src folder and let it be empty for now. That's okay, just to run this application with the progressive features. You see the claims is checked if it's passed through the environment, but if you take a look at the previous setup, we will see two things: skip waiting and client's claim. So it's already true, and we want our new application to work and behave the same way. So we are going to set explicitly the claims true here, and it actually, we can even pass register type auto update here without any additional conditions, because we know exactly that it should be auto update, which would mean claim and which would mean skip waiting automatically, as far as I know. So we are good here, and this strategy is very important. I'm going to set the strategy here, and my strategy for the progressive web app application would be inject manifest. I want to inject first my manifest from here, create a file, and make it available for the browser. Manifest file should be generated and to be made available for the browser, as well as service worker, which will be processed and generated for the browser as well as a separate file. So browser would be able to see this swv.js and actually use it as a service worker. And this approach, inject manifest, allows us to inject some custom service worker, which we are going to copy from the example project. And the approach we used before, we actually used, let me come back to the application. We actually used generate SW approach before and not inject manifest. But now I'm going to change it to actually be able later improve it and adjust it to my needs. But it should be more or less the same if the copy claim SW service worker from the example project should be almost the same approach. Let me just... The only reason is that the service worker is not generated by the Vite PWA plugin. It's injected from my code, so, but still it's gonna be almost as by default. Maybe with additional cleaning step here, I will just save the file, remove unnecessary includes through the Visual Studio Code. So we use here workbox core and workbox precaching only. So this is our new service worker file, and first thing, we are going to precache all assets and also the main template file, index.html. And also next step, we are going to clean up outdated caches. For instance, if the cache is expired by some conditions, the old cache will be removed. The old cached assets will be removed. I think it's pretty straightforward here to not to explain anything here, because as I said, it's quite obvious. Otherwise, if you need some more information, you can go to the Vite PWA website and learn all of this information. They have a lot of information how to configure stuff, generate SW approach or inject manifest approach. So you can always find this information if you are interested in digging deeper. But for now, for me, it should be okay to just follow what they suggest implementing in the example project. I'm going to remove this stuff from here because we already set everything explicitly here. I'm going to add some self-destroying feature here and set it to false. Sometimes you may want to remove the service worker from the browser, right? And when you want to force it, you may use this property, but you can also remove it through unregistering it through the browser. Here you can unregister stuff, so that should not be a problem to do it through browser, but just in case you need it, you have this option here to self-destroying. Let me have it. Let me run what we have and see what happens. I will just reload the page, and you may see that it actually it has found my service worker as def sv sw, and you see just simple steps here: skip waiting, client's claim, etc. And let me come back to the view we had before. And so the service worker is now registered, so all the requests to backend go through a proxy. This service worker, it works as a proxy sitting in the browser and receiving all your requests, and then deciding whether it should pass the request through or respond with cached version, which is why we have the behavior when, if they are offline, they still can use the application. They can still see the layout, the styles, the images, etc. I'm gonna reload the page again to update everything to be updated. So, and also let me just check if the service worker is really working by setting offline and reloading the page. No, it doesn't work actually for some reason. So we need to investigate what happens. I'm gonna remove it, the offline flag, and take a look at the what we have here. And it's exactly what I mentioned. In the cache storage, we have only indexed HTML file cached. And it's wrong, because we also need to cache images, icons, and JavaScript even. So we can have a fully functioning web application. So, and what's wrong here? The thing is that we need to build the application to have everything working. So I'm going to just go back to their console, disable the dev mode, and npm run build the app first, and you can see dev dist folder here. Our service worker and stuff is generated here in dev dist folder, which I'm going to add to git ignore, because I'm not going to have this in my git repository. It's temporary, really. So now let me just edit this as a condition here. Dev dist, probably it would be better, but okay. Let me put it here. Yeah, now the dev dist folder won't be committed, won't be included in any commit, which is good. What else here? So the dist folder actually has everything built, because you see PWA inject manifest mode, which is what we configured, which is what we expect. And you see that service worker is created and put inside the dist directory. If you open it, we see a bit different code. We see some workbox includes, some pre-cache logic, a lot of things. So workbox project is actually it's huge. So it makes our life easier, but it's very complex under the hood. It's one of the examples when some library actually does a lot for you, but you don't even know about that, which is good, which is, I think, good developer experience. You just configure your stuff through the config and have everything. Let me close stuff and have everything just through configuration, some basic configuration. I didn't add a lot here, but yeah, still. Let me take a look and see why it is not working here, or better to say, it should work better if I use preview. Let me run the application in the preview mode and reload it and open developer console again, and maybe something changed, maybe it's improved. And you may see now that the service worker file doesn't have dev prefix, which means that it's a bit different service worker file, which actually I think it should cache more. Yes, exactly. It actually caches all the assets and all this stuff I mentioned explicitly, and asked the Vite PWA plugin to cache, including manifest file, including service worker, icons, everything you may see. So now I'm going to just make the app simulate the offline mode and reload the page. Yeah, you may see that everything is working, right? It means that we are now consuming the application completely from cache, which service worker provides. Let me go online again. Okay, well, what we can improve here, if any, I'm going to go to the manifest tab and see what's wrong here and what if there are any complaints here. And yes, there are a couple of complaints here. So it says that reach a progressive web application should have some additional icons or screenshots. I'm going to set the screenshots as if I had them. I don't have them actually, but let me try to kind of trick the browser to think that I had the screenshots white and not only white. Okay, let me set it form factor white, which is what's required, and reload the application again. I need to update service worker here probably. Yes, I'm already updating it, which is good. And what else? Okay. Yeah, it needs one screenshot with white parameter set and one without form factor white. Okay, I can do that. No problem at all. I will just add not white screenshot here using the same large icon. Doesn't matter actually for now. Let me reload the app and see. I think we have some issues here. Let me just Google what the manifest should be like. Oh, it didn't found the screenshot section here, which means that it's cached and not updated for some reason. Let me try to update it here. Maybe unregister it and register it again. Maybe we can see changes. Okay, we don't see any changes here for some reason. Maybe we can just rerun. Okay, maybe we can rerun the... Oh yes, of course. Let me correct myself. They used a bit different mod, preview mod, based on what's inside this dist folder. And if we change something, we need to actually rebuild the application, right? So I need to build it first again, and only then run it in the preview mode. It can be automated. I don't care much about that right now. Yes, now we have this screenshot section with 2 screenshots. Actually, yeah, it's not real screenshots as I mentioned. It's just to fake the browser to use this application as a progressive, as a full reach progressive web application. So I think now we more or less good, except maybe for this warning. Let me copy this information from the old application. I will just, maybe I can just copy manifest settings from the old app. At least something. For instance, start URL. No. Okay, anyway, I will just add what I need to add here. Let me correct myself. Yeah, I need to add start URL, ID. Okay, we can add ID here to the manifest. ID and use like start URL here. Source like PWA or something. Yeah, you may get this information as a UTM label. That's me, UTM source. Get this information to the sorry, it's my Thai language here because I'm currently located in Thai. It tries to find the information in Thai language. But yeah, I think it should be UTM source. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, should be okay. I will use it start URL as well, the same way, and ID is the same. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this UTM source label should go to the Google Analytics, and you can actually analyze how many users get to your application with this UTM source label, so you can actually see the numbers. Maybe no one uses your application as a progressive app application, so maybe you need to kind of reconsider. Sometimes maybe people don't know that it's a progressive application. They need to be informed. Maybe a label or a bar should inform them that, okay, you can install this application to your desktop now and use it offline whenever you need it. But because you didn't indicate it in any way, users don't know. So it's possible to implement some prompts for user, for service worker updates, for informing users. But yeah, I think it's a bit out of this tutorial of this video, so I'm not going to work on it right now. I just want to make my application work similar or in a comparable way as before. So I just rebuilt my application. I'm gonna run it again through preview mode. I wanna remove all the warnings from here. Yes, and now you see that the warnings have gone, and they have this UTM source label here to easier analyze traffic later on. So I think we should be good with service worker stuff and the offline work. I just set offline mode again to my browser and reloaded the app. I can see that the service worker does its job, and our application now is fully progressive, no warnings, no anything. So yeah, and I can continue actually with other stuff. I have one more issue to handle. Let me remove stuff from here which I don't need. To keep the repository clean, just we'll add some icon as a placeholder here, so I can just improve the icons later, the screenshots and the icons. Now I have one more thing to handle. Let me come back to the original application, and here the index module, the main file here, has some logic to update the representation through timer every 1 minute. It's necessary because when your application is cached with service worker, but the date is obviously changing all the time, you need to update the representation of the current moon phase and the new and full next dates, you know. So you need to update this data regularly. Before, I just re-rendered the entire elements, the content of the elements. Now I have Solid to render stuff, so I'm going to implement some re-rendering with by timer. A similar way, I will copy this logic for reference and put it somewhere here just for reference. I'm not going to do the same. It will be a bit different because we don't need to re-render the page as before. We just need to rerun this render function regularly, at least once a minute. Okay, and what I'm going to do now is this onMount handler can be used for both, for adding event listeners and also for re-rendering the page. I think I should separate this the following way. We'll just wrap it inside a bigger function and set some event handlers here. For instance, you see the onload event here. We don't need it anymore because this onMount actually works as an onload, but still we need to set the interval for updating the data regularly. So I'm going to put it here, uncommit it, and use the render function here inside. Okay, and to save the reference for the set interval, actually, to be honest, I need to destroy the interval later on. So I need to store the reference for this interval somewhere. Okay, I'm going to create a variable for the interval. Let me use just a regular, I don't know, any for now, okay? Or I can call it update interval, render interval. It should be better, render interval. I'm going to set the render interval variable value based on the center interval function response, which is returned from this function. And there is a on cleanup hook of Solid.js, which is especially useful in this situation when you need to destroy something after when it ends, actually, when the user ends the session, etc. So it's a good idea to destroy stuff which you don't need anymore here when a user unmounts the component. Then the user leaves the page, goes to another page, etc. If you have any, of course. Think we should be good now. And this condition, actually, I was explaining it to you last time, but here I'm gonna mention only that this information is re-rendered once a minute with a condition. If only the browser tab, which is responsible for this application, is open and has focus. If not, we just do nothing. So we don't re-render the data, we don't recalculate data, we don't spend browser resources for re-rendering stuff if the tab is not active. If user left the tab, we just don't do anything here. I mean, the timer is still ticking, but yeah, nothing happens here. We just return from it. So yeah, I think we should be good. I'm only interested to see if we need to render yes, we need to render it first time. And what we do, actually, we render the not render, actually, we calculate data onMount first and then recalculate the data on every one minute. Okay, I don't like the name of this function, render, because in fact we don't render stuff. We trigger rendering, but we don't render it. So I think, yeah, and one thing I want to change also, I want to change the type of this variable to be more correct, to be type safe. Node.js timeout. Okay, it should be Node.js timeout. Node.js timeout. Yeah. Now we are safe here type-wise. And I don't, as I mentioned, I don't like this name. Can we just call it, I don't know, something like recalculate or something like this? I don't know. What do you think? Or you like to keep it re-render? I think, okay, let me just rename it to recalculate or refresh. Okay, I like refresh more. Okay, but actually we visualize the moon chart, so refresh or re-render should be okay. I should not be that how to say, that careful with names. Doesn't matter much. Let me see if we actually recalculate stuff every minute. I'm gonna console log here. Refreshing. So we need to know and the time, right? We need to know when it's triggered. I will just use the date primitive here, the date function here, which returns us timestamp. And yeah, let's see how often it's recalculated, regenerated, refresh, or whatever you want it to be called. Yeah, I will just reload the page. I need to actually, yes, reload the service worker to actually, and I also need to rebuild the application. Of course, I always forgot it. Let me rebuild the app, run it in preview mode, and refresh the page. And the service worker accordingly, because yeah, we need to refresh stuff, we need to refresh cached resources. And now I can go offline actually and see if it's going to be refreshed in 1 minute. So you can let me just give you a basic information about what you can do with this progressive app application. You can install it to the desktop on Linux using this icon here. You see install Ashtanga Moon application. I'm going to show it to you. You can also install it in Android, in Android operating system through Chrome, I guess, Chrome browser. And also you can install it by adding to your desktop in iPhone, in iOS as well. You may try, experiment it yourself. You know the URL, you know, ashtangamoon.org, and you can experiment with it yourselves. I'm going to deploy the new application as soon as we finish, as soon as we make sure it's working well. I'm going to deploy it and replace the old application with the new Solid one. But anyway, you will be able to use both the old one and the new one because they work almost identically in terms of progressive web stuff. So you can install it to your desktop and use it offline, experiment with it, and yeah, as you may see, nothing is refreshed here. Yeah, then it means that something, yeah, and then I focused on that application, when I clicked that application, it was actually refreshed, right? So you need to keep focus on that application to get it refreshed. You cannot go to and focus. As you see, I focused on this icon, I shifted my focus somewhere to the console, etc. You need to get back to the application. You need to keep focused on the application to get it refreshed all the time, because of the condition I showed you. If you don't like that condition, it's reasonable. I can understand that. For your application, you may just skip it. You may not need it at all. So, but me, I think it's reasonable. For me, yeah, I will keep it for now. Maybe later. Just let me know in comments if you think it's a bad idea to have this application, to have this condition, has focus condition in this loop, in this timer function. So yeah, you see that it's updated actually, which is good, which is what I wanted to achieve. And now I'm going to remove this console log because yeah, now I don't need it. And now I think we are quite close to the state of the previous application, with just slight difference in service worker generation approach, but still everything else is pretty much the same, but even better because we are now using Solid.js. And if we want to add some more features here, it would be easier for us. We don't need to connect with DOM directly. We have true reactivity here. If something changes, we update the layout. We don't update it all the time if it's not necessary, you see. So yeah, this is one of the advantages of reactive approach here. So I'm going to probably finish for now because I covered most of the things I wanted to cover. So here I will think about how to improve this application. Now when we have the same state, now we can improve things. So improve layout, improve, maybe refactor some code, maybe remove this condition if you don't like it. Just let me know with some reason for that. I will remove it, no problem. I just want to save user resources for constant recalculation, but actually Google Chrome is wise enough to actually shut down some tabs which are not used and even unload them from memory. So we can rely on the browser approach for that and just remove any additional conditions here. But for now, let's stay close to our initial version, and I will just commit it to Git, so you can always roll back to one lesson and go through it with me, or experiment with the final version yourselves by changing stuff, by improving stuff. Please feel free to let me know if you see any improvements for the application. I will try to include them into my next video. So thank you very much for your time and see you soon.